Welcome to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast. Today we're going deep with a fascinating collection.
Oh yeah, Letters of al-Ghazali.
Letters of al-Ghazali. Really gives us a chance to get to know this amazing figure in Islamic thought.
Imam al-Ghazali, yeah, one of the most influential thinkers, really.
Right, and so unlike some of his other works like Ihya al-Din, which is this massive,
Oh yeah, a classic.
huge, treatise on Islamic theology,
It covers everything.
these letters, they feel so much more personal.
Much more intimate, like we're getting a glimpse into his personal life and struggles.
Like we're reading his diary almost.
Exactly. It's like eavesdropping on a conversation
Yes.
from almost 1,000 years ago.
It's amazing, and it's thanks to Abdul Qayyum, who translated and published these letters back in '92 in India.
It's a real treasure.
It is, and he's corresponding with these really fascinating figures,
Oh, absolutely.
powerful people.
Setan Sanjar, yeah.
Still sounds Sanjar.
Advisors like Nizam al-Mulk, scholars, everyday people seeking his advice.
It's amazing that we get to peek into these exchanges.
It's a unique window into his world.
So before we jump into the specifics, can you set the stage for us a little bit?
Sure.
Who was al-Ghazali? And what was the world like when he was writing these letters?
Well, we have to go back, way back to 1058 CE to Tes, Persia, modern-day Iran.
Yeah.
Al-Ghazali was born into a world vastly different than ours.
Right.
The Seljuk Empire was this major force expanding across huge territories,
Wow.
from Anatolia all the way to Central Asia.
It's hard to even imagine.
And at the same time, there was this incredible intellectual energy in Baghdad.
The heart of the Abbasid Caliphate.
Exactly. Scholars from all over coming together debating philosophy, theology, law.
A real melting pot of ideas.
A golden age of Islamic scholarship.
And al-Ghazali, he emerges right in the middle of this dynamic period.
He was a product of this environment, a brilliant student.
I bet.
Excelling in his studies, he eventually lands a prestigious position at the Nizamiya College in Baghdad.
Oh, wow. The Harvard of its day.
You could say that.
Yeah.
He becomes this renowned professor, a leading voice in Islamic law and theology.
So he's at the top of his game, surrounded by the best minds.
Living the dream, right?
Yeah.
But that's where things take a turn. Really. Al-Ghazali, despite all his success, he plunges into a deep personal crisis.
What happened?
He starts questioning everything.
Like what?
The nature of knowledge, the meaning of life, his own beliefs, everything.
Wow, an existential crisis.
Yeah, and it leads him to make a radical decision.
What's that?
He abandons his comfortable life and embarks on a spiritual quest.
That's a huge leap.
It is. He turns to Sufism.
The mystical tradition of Islam.
Exactly, emphasizing inner purification, connecting with the divine.
It's like he's searching for a deeper truth.
For 10 years, he travels, immerses himself in Sufi practices, studies with masters.
It's a decade of introspection and self-discovery.
Yeah, he's wrestling with these big questions, trying to understand his place in the world.
So these letters, are they written after he comes back from this journey?
Most of them, yes. He's back, but transformed.
Right.
And his letters are full of this wisdom he's gained.
I can't wait to dive into them.
Let's do it.
So where do we start?
Well, one that really jumps out is his letter to Sultan Sanjar himself.
Wow, that's bold.
He wrote this in 1106, and it gives us a look into his views on leadership, on justice, and the challenge of balancing power with spiritual integrity.
Those are timeless issues, really relevant for leaders today.
Absolutely.
So what does he say to the Sultan?
He starts by acknowledging the heavy responsibility of leadership, emphasizing the Sultan's duty to be just, to protect the vulnerable.
Can care for his people.
Exactly. He reminds the Sultan that real power doesn't come from force or manipulation.
It's about something more.
It comes from aligning yourself with the divine will.
From leading with wisdom and compassion.
That's the source of true authority.
He's setting a high bar for leadership.
He is, and he goes on to warn the Sultan against the pitfalls of power.
The temptations.
Arrogance, greed.
That pursuit of empty glory.
Yeah, he's reminding him that worldly power is fleeting, meaningless without spiritual grounding.
It's like a reality check for the Sultan.
It is.
Did the Sultan grant his request?
He did, eventually.
Wow, so al-Ghazali goes back to Tus.
Establishes a madrasa, a school for Islamic learning, and a Sufi khanqa, a spiritual retreat center.
So he's going back to his roots as a teacher and spiritual guide.
Exactly, sharing the wisdom he's gained.
What an incredible life story.
It is.
And besides the Sultan, who else was he corresponding with?
Well, he had quite a few exchanges with Nizam al-Mulk.
Oh, the powerful vizier.
Right. The chief advisor in the Seljuk court.
That's a key position.
It was.
So what kind of advice is he giving to this vizier?
Well, in one letter, he outlines 3 types of men who seek authority.
3 types. Okay, I'm intrigued.
The first type, driven purely by ambition.
Power hungry.
Yeah, seeking wealth, status for their own gain.
Sounds familiar.
The second type, motivated by a desire to do good.
Okay, so they want to serve the people.
To uphold justice.
Ideal leader, right.
Seems like it.
What's the third type?
Ah, now this is where it gets interesting. These individuals, they're driven by a higher calling.
Like a spiritual yearning.
Exactly.
Right.
They see leadership as a form of worship.
Wow.
A way to serve God by serving humanity.
So their actions are an expression of their love for God.
Precisely.
That's a beautiful way to look at leadership.
Al-Ghazali suggests that this third type is the rarest.
And probably the most effective.
They're not swayed by temptations or public opinion.
They have a deeper wisdom guiding them.
Right. A profound understanding of life's purpose.
This is fascinating.
It is.
Makes me wonder which category al-Ghazali would put himself in.
Good question.
Yeah. You have any thoughts?
Well, maybe he was striving towards that third type.
Trying to integrate his worldly duties with his spiritual aspirations.
He was still engaged in the world, writing these letters, advising leaders.
Right, he wasn't completely detached.
It's a tension I think many of us can relate to.
Trying to balance our responsibilities with our longing for meaning. So before we move on, what would you say is the main takeaway from these letters to the Sultan and the Vizier?
I think the overarching message is that true leadership,
Whether in politics, scholarship, or in life,
requires more than just competence or good intentions.
it demands a deeper understanding.
Of yourself, of ethical conduct, a commitment to spiritual growth.
It's about aligning our actions with our values.
And recognizing that true power comes from serving something greater than ourselves.
That's a powerful message.
That is.
Al-Ghazali wasn't just concerned with the mechanics of governing.
He was focused on the inner transformation of the leader.
It's not enough to change laws, we have to change ourselves.
From the inside out.
This is giving me a lot to think about.
Me too.
This has been a great start to our deep dive.
We've only just scratched the surface.
I can't wait to explore more of al-Ghazali's insights.
Me neither. There's so much more to discover.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Letters of al-Ghazali.
It's amazing how he can take these really complex ideas about philosophy and theology and make them practical, give actual advice.
Yeah, like how do we actually live this stuff?
Exactly. He's offering a roadmap, a way to grow spiritually.
And he's doing this while talking to all sorts of people.
Sultans, viziers, scholars, ordinary folks.
Yeah, it's like no matter who you are, he's got something for you.
There's a universality to his message.
So where do we go from here?
Well, there's this really interesting letter to Mujahideen.
Another big name in the Seljuk court.
Right, and this one delves into human desire.
Whoa, that's a big one.
It is, and al-Ghazali breaks it down in a really fascinating way.
Okay, I'm all ears.
So he starts by talking about the people who are consumed by worldly desires.
The pursuit of wealth, status, pleasure, all that.
Yeah, the things we often think will make us happy.
But they rarely do.
Right, it's like that saying, be careful what you wish for.
You might just get it, and then what?
Exactly. Al-Ghazali warns against becoming a slave to these desires.
Because they can lead us down the wrong path.
Endless striving, always chasing the next thing.
Never satisfied.
And he argues that real happiness, it doesn't come from external things.
It's an inside job.
It's about cultivating inner peace and contentment.
Makes sense. So if worldly desires aren't the answer, what is?
Well, then al-Ghazali talks about the desire for the hereafter.
Okay, for eternal bliss in paradise.
Right, and this desire, it comes from recognizing our mortality.
That this life is temporary.
In that there's something more.
Something that transcends this world.
Exactly.
And this belief in an afterlife. It can be really powerful.
It can, but even here, al-Ghazali offers a nuanced perspective.
Okay, how so?
He cautions against pursuing the hereafter just out of fear of punishment.
Or for a reward, like it's some kind of transaction.
Yeah, he says true piety comes from a genuine love for God.
A longing for closeness to the divine.
Not just wanting to avoid hell or get into heaven.
So it's about the why behind our actions.
Our intentions.
They matter.
They do. Al-Ghazali emphasizes that purifying our intentions is crucial.
So we should act out of love, compassion.
A sincere desire to please God.
This is really making me think.
It's a reminder to check in with ourselves.
To examine our motivations.
And make sure our actions are aligned with our values.
Yeah. That's powerful.
And then al-Ghazali goes on to describe a third category of desire.
Okay, this is getting interesting. What's this third one?
These individuals, they recognize that the worldly and the spiritual are connected.
So they're not trying to escape the world.
No, they strive for excellence in both realms.
So fulfilling their worldly duties, but staying focused on their spiritual growth.
Right, it's an integrated approach.
Sounds challenging.
It is. Al-Ghazali says it's the most challenging but also the most rewarding.
It's like finding that balance.
Walking a tightrope.
Yeah, exactly.
Engaging with the world without losing sight of what truly matters.
And does he give any advice on how to do this?
He does. He emphasizes seeking knowledge,
Okay.
engaging in spiritual practices like prayer and meditation, surrounding ourselves with a supportive community.
People who uplift us, challenge us.
Yeah, he recognized the importance of community on the spiritual path.
It's not a solo journey.
Right. We need each other to stay grounded, to support each other.
This is making me think about my own circle of friends.
Yeah, it's a good question to ask. Who are we surrounding ourselves with?
Do they inspire us? Do they help us grow?
Because the company we keep, it has a profound impact on us.
This is really insightful.
It is.
Anything else that stands out from this letter about desire?
Well, there's this beautiful analogy he uses.
Okay, I love a good analogy.
He talks about the sun and its rays.
Okay.
He says, just as the sun's rays emanate from the sun and return to it, so too do our desires originate from God and lead us back to him.
I see. We might seek fulfillment in different ways.
But deep down, our hearts are yearning for connection with the divine.
So even our most basic desires are a reflection of that yearning.
Exactly. Al-Ghazali is encouraging us to see the divine spark within us.
And in everything around us.
Yeah, to elevate our desires, refine them, and use them to understand our true nature.
Our relationship with God.
Right.
It's like our desires are these rays of light trying to find their way back to the source.
A beautiful image.
It is. Even amidst all the chaos and distractions, there's this deeper longing within us.
A yearning for connection, for meaning, for something more.
And that yearning can guide us.
Towards a life of purpose, fulfillment, and ultimately union with the divine.
Wow. This has been an incredible exploration of desire.
It really has.
I feel like we could spend hours on this one letter alone.
There's so much depth there.
Okay, so what else did al-Ghazali write about?
Well, let's see what other gems he has for us in these letters.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Letters of al-Ghazali.
It's been an incredible journey so far.
It really has. We've covered so much ground.
Leadership, desire, the human condition.
Yeah, and as we explore these last few letters, there's this one theme that keeps popping up for me.
What's that?
Knowledge. Al-Ghazali, he was obviously a brilliant scholar.
One of the greatest minds of his time.
But he also seems really aware of the potential downsides of knowledge.
Especially when it's pursued for the wrong reasons.
Exactly. Like knowledge for knowledge's sake.
He stresses that knowledge without action, it's meaningless.
It's like a tree with no fruit.
Beautiful, but ultimately barren.
You can have all the knowledge in the world.
But if it doesn't change you, if it doesn't guide your actions...
What's the point?
Right. True knowledge, it should transform us.
Lead us to a life of virtue and service.
Make us better human beings.
And this emphasis on the practical side of knowledge.
Putting it into practice.
Yeah, it really comes through in his letter, To Whomsoever It May Concern.
Interesting title.
It is, but even though it's addressed generally,
It feels so personal.
like he's talking to each one of us.
Directly.
So what does he say in this letter?
Well, he starts by recognizing that humans, we have this natural desire for knowledge.
This curiosity to learn and understand.
But he warns against seeking knowledge just for worldly gain.
For status or to win arguments.
To show off how smart we are.
Yeah, I think we've all fallen into that trap at some point.
It's easy to do, especially today with information overload.
We can get so caught up in accumulating knowledge.
Without stopping to think about why.
What's the purpose of all this knowledge?
Exactly. Al-Ghazali reminds us that true knowledge should bring us closer to God.
Deepen our understanding of ourselves.
And inspire us to live more ethical lives.
So it's not just about what we know.
It's about how we use that knowledge.
To become better people.
To make a positive impact on the world.
And he gives some concrete advice on how to do that, right?
He does. He emphasizes the importance of finding wise teachers.
Okay.
Engaging in critical thinking.
Not just blindly accepting everything we hear.
Right, and testing our understanding through action.
So it's an active process, not passive.
Exactly. True knowledge is a journey.
Of discovery and transformation.
It's constantly evolving.
This reminds me of the Socratic method.
Oh yeah, learning through dialogue,
Yeah.
questioning.
Challenging our assumptions.
Al-Ghazali, like Socrates, believed that true learning involves this back and forth
This wrestling with ideas.
until we arrive at a deeper understanding.
I like that.
And this idea of knowledge as transformation.
It's even more prominent in his letter to Ibn al-Amil.
Another scholar.
Yeah, in this letter, he specifically warns against prioritizing worldly knowledge over spiritual growth.
It's like he's saying, don't get so lost in your books that you forget about your soul.
Right. It's about finding that balance.
Integrating our intellectual pursuits with our spiritual aspirations.
Because true knowledge should nourish our hearts.
Not just fill our heads.
It should inspire us to live more compassionately.
In harmony with God's will.
So it's not about rejecting intellectual pursuits.
It's about choosing the right kind of knowledge.
The kind that uplifts us, that helps us connect with something greater than ourselves.
Exactly.
This has been such an eye-opening journey.
It really has.
These letters have challenged me, inspired me.
They offer so much wisdom.
Timeless wisdom.
And they remind us that knowledge is a powerful tool.
But it's up to us to use it wisely.
To use it for good.
To let it transform us and guide us towards a more meaningful life.
A life of purpose, service, and connection with the divine.
Well said. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the world of Imam al-Ghazali.
It's been a pleasure.
And to our listener, thank you for being here, for sharing this journey of discovery with us. May we all continue to seek knowledge that enriches our lives and helps us create a more just and compassionate world.